Everybody, my name is Hassan Dumbia. Today I'm going to talk about Bosch safety cause element 8 IGC2, right? IGC2 element 8. In this topic I will talk about physical and psychological health hazard and the risk control. Before I proceed further, I'll first deliberate on the physical aspect. When we're talking about the physical aspect, we have noise, right? What is noise? Effective of exposure to noise. We have the physical effects of noise, right? And noise can cause psychological or physical health hazard, right? So what are the physical effects of noise? It can temporarily reduce in the hearing sensitivity and the ringing in the ear as a result of short duration and explosion to an excessive loud noise. Then also noise induce the hearing loss, then permanently loss of hearing as a result of repeated exposure to the excessive loud noise, right? Then we have tinnitus. What is tinnitus? Is the persistent ringing in the ear as a result of repeated exposure to the excessive loud noise. So this simply means that when there is a loud noise, you stay in certain place which is very noisy, or working with an equipment which is very noisy for a very long period, then the eardrum also be affected because of the repeated exposure to this excessive loud noise. Then we'll talk about stress effects caused by irritation and a nuisance or background noise. So this simply means that if people are around or a machine is walking around, so this irritation that you are getting from this machine or these people that are around, also it can affect the eardrums. Also you can get stress from it. Then we'll talk about inability to hear hazard and alarm or ringing, conversations or spoken instruction as a result of background noise, right? So noise also, it serves as an defect also, right? Then also we're talking about difficulty in concentration and also increasing the error caused by nuisance or background noise. So this simply means that it can cause mistakes, because when there is a lot of noise around the environment or where you are working, so it can also obstruct or divert the mind of the worker. Then we're talking about physical or physiological effects. What are the physiological effects? Like it can cause stress caused by irritation or nuisance or background noise. Then also it can cause difficulty in concentrating and also increasing errors caused by nuisance or background noise. So those are the psychological effects it can cause. So then we're talking about the terminology. When we're talking about terminologies like sound pressure, the level, the intensity of this pressure waves moving through the ear, right, expressed using the decibel. Then we have decibel, also the unit of the sound or the level. Then we have something called frequency, is another terminology. This is the number of the pressure or the wave that passes a fixed point in 1 second, right, like hasn't. Then we're talking about a weighting. A weighting also is another terminology. It applies to the decibel scale to give a sound pressure level excessively, as a decibel A converts the decibel value to take into account the sensitivity of the human ear across the range of frequency. Then we have another terminology we call C weighting. During the assessment, the C weighting may be applied to the decibel scales and to give a sound pressure level express the decibel, right, or the weight, or give more accurate reading for the impulse noise or signal, loud band that will be properly recorded using the decibel. So all this one is how is the calculation. This terminology can use in the calculation. So the amount of noise that you receive that can affect the eardrums. So these are the calculations, or they call it the terminology. Then I'm going further to talk about the assessment of exposure of noise. What are the assessments? Noise exposure limits. The dose of the noise to which a person may be exposed over the course of a working day is 8 hours, and its equivalent for a short period of time is specifically by the regulatory or framework. As example, the European system usually exposure action or value, right? So the hours that you expose to this noise, it can make the eardrum to damage, right? At least 8 hours consistently you are working in an environment where it's not noisy, or you are using machine which is noisy, it can also damage the eardrums, right? Then I go further to talk about lower explosion or action value. What is lower exposure action value? Where that is, it's at 80 decibel or daily personal noise exposure. The employer must carry out a noise assessment every place. The employer must carry out a noisy assessment. They also provide information and instruction and a training to the employee. They also make an hearing protection available, like ear protection available. Like there is something like a cotton bulb need to put on the ear to protect you from the sound. Then also employer should provide upper explosion action value, where the L, that is 85 decibel a daily personal noise exposure. The employee must carry out a noisy assessment or reduce the noise exposure to a lower level of reasonable practicable. If the noise levels are still above 80 decibel, then the employer must establish a mandatory ear protectional zone, right? And also it should provide information or instruction and training to the employee. They should also provide ear protection and enforce its use. Then also you need to provide an health surveillance, right? Then noise explosion control. How you're going to control this noise explosion, right? Now, noise reduction at a source by eliminating or substitution of the process or equipment producing the sound. So equipment that is producing the sound need to remove from that place, or you need to put a soundproof, right? Then we're talking about number 2, interrupting the pathway from the source of receiving. So where you receive the noise, you have to need to interrupt that area, or to block that area, so noise will not produce that much. Using a engine control which limits the amount of noise or transmitted. You have to use an isolation or segregation, enclose the noise sources and absorb, and insulation reduce the reverberation of the noise, and damping or silencing or reduce the vibration or the sound. So this simply means that if there is a lot of noise where there is a machine, you have to put an insulation, right? Like something like a soundproof. You can make the wall soundproof. You can put something like a sponge by making a soundproof, right? They call it an insulation. That is called an insulation. Then also you have to make a personal protection. What are the personal protection? Like ear protection should also be used only if either of the first two approach results is in a satisfactory situation. So if these two approach is not applicable, like one, to reduce the sound, then also to the interrupting the pathway by using the segregation or enclose or using an insulation. If this one is not available, you can use the PPE, that is personal protective equipment, right? Then we're talking about ear protection. How can you protect the ear? Ear muffy can also be used, or defend fits complete over the ear. They are not also easily to use with other PPE, such as head hats or glasses, right? Then ear plug fits in the ear canal, but are not easy to clean and can be uncomfortable. The employee may also need to be encouraged or supervised to ensure that they wear this protection. So like using this ear bud or ear plug, it's very difficult for the employee to use it. So this employee should also be supervised, where you don't need to remove this one, right? So I'll go further also and explain about employee may need to encourage also. Then I'm going further to explain about the roles of health surveillance. Health surveillance in the form of auditory is an approach for the worker exposed to high noise level. Those statutory requirements vary. Audiometries or medical tests that qualify the sensitivity of the person hearing across the range of frequency should also usually be carried out on all workers potentially exposed or above the 85 decibel exposure limits, right? So these workers needed to be tested for their ears, right, in every work or every month basis. Then I'm going to talk about occupational at risk. Occupational at risk, this is the following occupational may also be at a risk for excessive noise exposure. One, we have construction workers. Construction workers, as a result of the plant or the machines operation, such as the concentrated concentrate baker. So this one also produce high sound also. So they are at risk, the construction worker. Then uniform service, such as army personnel exposed to noise from small arm or artillery fire. So they are also exposed to that one. Small arm fire also, military. Then also entertainment sectors worker, those people that are working in entertainment, they're also exposed to sound, such as nightclub staffs exposed to loud music. Then manufacturing sector worker also, they are also these factory workers or manufacturing workers, they're also exposed to industrial machine, and this machine also they have lots of noise. Then we have call center staff. Call center staff also are also exposed to loud noise and also acoustic shock from the using of this headset also. So these are occupational at risk. Occupational means that they designate worker, you that are working in certain areas, right? This is your job, so they are more prone and exposed, like construction worker, uniform service like military, right? When they are using firearm, they are going for range shooting, so this one also affects their eardrum. The entertainment, right, sectors worker, like those DJs or nightclub, they also affected. Then manufacturing worker also, they are also affected by this one. Then call center, people that are working in call center also, right? Then we're talking about vibration, like and arm vibration transmitted from worker processing in workers hand, and arm, right? Sources include operating and handheld power tools, example like road breaker or chair saw or sandal, pneumatic tissues, right? Then operating hand guide equipment like power law maneuver. So all these machines create lots of sound also, so it can lead to vibration. This vibration the machine is producing, it can also affect the eardrum, right? Then talking about handheld vibration syndrome and hand-arm vibration syndrome. This is the main disease caused by the hand-arm vibration symptoms, including vibration, white finger. This blood supply to the finger shut down, and also the finger turn white. Knowing the bleach, the blood supply return after a time, and the finger become red and painful. Then the nerve got damaged, you understand? So because of these machines also, the nerves can get damaged because it deal with vibration. The nerve from the finger stop working properly, and is as a result in the loss of pressure, heat, and painful sensitivity. Then the muscular weakening, right? Because of the vibration, the muscular also gets weakened. Grip strength and manual dexterity reduce. Then joint damage. Also your joint also can damage. Also abnormal bones growth at the finger or the joint can occur. Then we're talking about the whole body vibration because of noise. Also whole body vibrations, shaking or jointing of human bodies through the support or surface, usually a seat or a floor. The most significant health effect is damage to the soft tissue of the spine. That is the intervertebral discs. Though others effects such as the vertigo have been reported. We're talking about assessment of exposure. What are the assessments of exposure of noise, right? The dose of vibration absorbed is determined by the vibration magnitude, then also the duration of exposure, that the hours that you work, also which can show the amount of damage it can cause in your body, this vibration. A vibration assessment should also be estimated a worker actually exposed to vibration, which will fluorescent, and then calculate what the equivalent of 8 hours. Assessment might also measure vibration exposure directly using the matter or accumulate meter, or usually manufacturing data, right? The European regulatory regime recognize 2 types of vibration exposure. You have daily exposure action value, also they have daily exposure limit value. So these are the calculation, right? Then the employer must also carry out a vibration assessment, then immediately reduce the exposure below the exposure limits. Basic vibration control. When you are doing basic vibration control, you have to reduce the vibration at a source, eliminate the source, that's the machine that is causing noise or the part that is causing noise. You have to maintain it. Then we have to substitute the source, right? Then change the types of equipment, then changing workers technique, and the maintenance also. Then we're talking about interrupting the pathway from the sources to receive. Isolation. You have to put isolation, right? Like soundproof for this machine not to affect another person because of the sound. Then limit the duration of exposure. If person is supposed to work like 8 hours, you have to limit the hours that he's supposed to work there, right? Then also talking about the then job rotation. You have to rotate them because of this place is very noisy. Then we're talking about roles of health surveillance. When we're talking about role of health surveillance, the employee should provide an health surveillance for the employee. The employer should provide a health surveillance for the employee who desperate application of the control and likely to regularly expose to the national determine the level of vibration, right? Level of vibration, or are also considered to be at risk for any other reason. The key reason is identification of workers with pre-existing damage. Then also new damage which the worker may related to. Then also removal or exclusive of short worker from vibration sources. Then also investigation of vibration control to identify or rectify the problem or order in the same worker. Then non-ionized radiation, right? What are non-ionized radiation? Radiation that does not cause ionization in the material that absorb it. Type of non-ionized radiation. Type of non-ionized radiation. There are 5 different types of non-ionized radiation. You have ultraviolet, then you have visible light, you have infrared, then you have microwave, they get radio wave. Laser are also sources of non-ionized radiation and also can operate at a UV. UV mean ultraviolet, visible and IR frequency. IR frequency mean infrared frequency, right? Then we're talking about the health effects of the UV. The UV that is ultraviolet, the effect is skin-borne pain or inflammatory to the surface of the eye, leading to a temporary blindness. It can cause temporary blindness. Also increase the risk of skin cancer or premature aging of the skin. Then we're talking about visible light. Visible light also temporary blindness and also permanent eye damage if very intensive. Then IR mean infrared. Infrared also it can cause redness and burn to the skin and develop of high cataract. Then microwaves also. Microwaves internal heat causes organ damage. Then radio waves. Radio waves also is internal heating causing organ damage. Laser are classified according to the intrinsic safety and power output. A class 1 laser presents little risk to the worker, but a class 4 laser can cause instant skin burn and also eye damage. Typical occupational sources of non-ionized radiation, like the UV you can is from sunlight, also or from welding. Then also IR is the infrared. It's like red hot steel, rolling mill, and also glass manufacturing. Then also visible light, like the laser level device, like those laser. Then laser pointer also can affect because of radiation. Then microwave, industrial microwave oven in a food factory. Then telecommunication equipment also. Then mobile phone antenna also. Then radio waves also, like radio, TV or radar antenna. Then how we can control this exposure to non-ionized radiation? For example, the ultraviolet like the UV cover exposure the skin and protect the eye. For example, a welder should also wear overall with a full length of sleeves to cover the firearm and guttering, and also the face also you should wear this one. Then the infrared also, the control measure, you should cover all exposure of the skin and protect your eyes, right? Then microwaves and radio waves, since these types of radiation can also be absorbed immediately, the control of exposure achieved by one, enclosing the source, then maintaining a safe distance, then isolation also from these microwaves. Then laser, what are the control measures? The degrees of protection depending on the class of the laser, and the high class of laser protection include protection, dark gloves and shield to protect or escape of the beam, and use of non-reflective surface, risk assessment, and also estimation or dose of radiation received by the compartment or the person or the laser protecting, right? Then we're talking about ionized radiation. What is ionized radiation? Ionized radiation that cause ionization in the metal that absorb it. Types of ionized radiation: you have alpha particle, you have beta particle, you have like these X-ray systems, they have something they call gamma rays. These are all X-ray. They have neutrons also you can get from these nuclear weapons and other things. Then also talking about the health effects of this ionized radiation. What are the health effects? The health effect is sickness and diarrhea, then ear loss, then abnormal due to red blood cell damage, then reduced immune system due to the white blood cell damage, then chronic infects like cancer, genetic mutation, then birth defects also can hard for you to give birth. Then also you can get cancer and also genetical manufacture problem, also mutation problem. Then typical occupational source of ionized radiation, like alpha particle, if you are smoke like these smoke detectors, science labs also you can get infects from that. Then you have beta particle like science labs or thickness gauge. They have X-rays, right? X-rays like medical radiology, then bagging security scanners also. Then you have gamma ray like industrial radiography also, right? Then also you have neutron like nuclear power station, people that are working in nuclear power station. Then basic means of control exposure to ionize, how we can control this exposure. Now time, you have to minimize the times that you are spending in this place. Then also you have to distance yourself. The great distance from this radiation source to explosion worker, the lower the dose then of the radiation received. So the more you stay closer, the more you receive more. The more you stay far, the more you receive lesser, right? Then a shield, you have to use shield. Shield also is also required for radiation also, right? Then we're talking about radon gas. What is radon gas in this context? Radon gas is naturally occur gas that sweep from the ground. Radon gas is a radioactive gas. It emits an ionized radiation like alpha particle. The health risk is an increase in risk of lung cancer. It can cause lung cancer, radon gas. Then typical occupational exposure to this rado gas, that people that are exposed, that are working in that field. Then workers who are spending significant amount of time in a subground space in areas where the rado levels are recognized to be higher are at a risk of rado explosion. Example will be increased, like for instance, worker in a basement office, then miner, people that are doing miner, then also construction worker involved in the tunnel also can also be affected by rado gas. Then also, what are the control measures? Control measure of risks that are presented by a rado gas involve: 1. Undertaking a survey of rado gas level, then engineering solution to a high rado level can often be applied, such as positive pressure air fan. It should also be applied. Then rado sub and extraction system also. Basic radiation protection strategy. What are the basic radiation protection strategy? Radiation explosion should also be eliminated so far as if it's reasonable practicable. Where this is not possible, then the explosion should also be reduced to the lowest level of reasonable practicable. Then employee explosion must also not be exceed the relevant radiation dose, because they have a thermometer, a measurement that is supposed to have. Then also, explosion must also be risk assessed by the competent person. So competent person should also be assess the people, the staffs, their risks. Then ongoing documentaries may also be necessary to monitor the exposure, right? Then also training and information for this employee. You should sensitize or give the employee awareness of the risks that involve in working in these areas, right, because of the radiation. Then health surveillance may also be necessary, right? Then we're talking about the roles of monitoring and health surveillance. The roles of monitoring and health surveillance: before a worker, as a classified worker, someone who is exposed to radiation over a specific national limit, then during a periodic health review, right? So these are the roles. And then also as surveillance if a dose is limited have been exceeded. Then after a seized worker as a classified worker, specific consideration may also be required for a classified worker who are pregnant or breastfeeding. So if a client or a staff is breastfeeding or is pregnant, she should not be exposed to this radiation. Also, she should not work there. Then work-related stress. Work-related stress defined as a adverse reaction that a people have to excessively pressure or other demands placed on them. The effect of stress: you have physical, you have psychological, they have behavioral. What are physical? Like you can be sweating, like a fast heart beating, then also blood pressure can increase, then skin rash also, then muscular tension, then headache, or you can also dizzy. Then also health stress, also you're talking about the physical, you can have anxiety, then low self-esteem, and also depression. Then behavior, in behavior you can be sleeplessness, then inability to concentrate, poor decision making ability, and mood swinging and inability, increase in alcohol consumption, then drugs misuse, then increasing absence from the workplace. Then we're talking about prolonged stress can also lead to job loss, divorce, alcoholism, then drugs addicts and mental breakdown. So because of stress also, you can acquire this one. You can be a drugs addict also. You can maybe have problem with your wife, you understand. So many things. Then causes of stress. What are the causes of stress? You have demand like the numerous difficulties or conflicts, right? People are demanding from you, then your work, so this one also can lead to stress also. Then we're talking about control. Control is lack of control over what is being done and how is it to be done, or a priority. So also that one is a cause of stress because you don't have control. Then support, lack of train and support. You don't have training skills, so because of that one it can lead also to stress. Then relationship also, then poor working relationship with supervisor or manager or your peer group, including they bully you or harass also. This kind also can lead to stress. Then the roles, lack of clarity regarding the roles or responsibility and authority. Because you don't know your roles also that one can lead to stress, you understand. Then also you're talking about change, the threat of change, or also the threat of the process of itself, Then also I go further to talk about stress control measure. What are the stress control measure? It can also be considered under the same 6 topic heading as above. 1 is demand, then 2 control, then 3 is support, then 4 is relationship, then 5 is the role. So you can control this thing. Then you can control, like for the demand, the realistic, you have to be realistic to yourself. Things that you know that you are not capable of doing, you can also say that I cannot do these things. So it can reduce your stress. They also control. You give worker as much as control over the work they're supposed to be doing, right? When worker receive more tax, you understand. So this one can also lead to stress also. Then support. You have to give them training also, so they have support how they can do their job also. Then the relationship. So this relationship also should be a cultural or should be ethical, right? Then also talking about the roles, they should have clarity about their roles and responsibility, so they cannot be exposed to stress also. So thank you very much, and I stop here.